Hello and welcome back to a brand new video. I am your host Daniel, and today we are going to be looking at the worst to best episodes of Rick and Morty Season 1. Now let me just say, I didn't come up with this idea. There is a YouTuber called Cosmodor who I've been watching for quite some time now, and he did the best to worst of SpongeBob episodes, and they are just incredible videos. All of his videos are amazing. If you want to subscribe to him, I'll leave a link in the description below because he is the one who came up with this idea. But I've not seen anyone else do a best to worst of anything else on YouTube. So I decided Season 4 of Rick and Morty is coming around, why not just do the best to worst of one of the best TV shows of our generation. Let me also just say that this is my own personal opinion. If you disagree with me, then just put it in the comments down below. I'm not saying any of the episodes are necessarily bad, I'm just saying that in this season, it's the worst episode of the season, or the best episode of the season. It doesn't mean that the episode itself is actually bad. Well, anyway, without further ado, let's get into the worst to best episodes of Rick and Morty Season 1. Okay, so coming in at number 11, we have Episode 7, Raising Gazorpazorp. Now, this episode, I knew straight away that I was going to put this at number 11. Like, it's not a bad episode, it's got a lot of funny moments and starts off with a good premise, as it reminds me a lot of like my teenage years and it's just funny. And some of the jokes are quite funny, such as Rick bouncing on the bed and everyone running upstairs, stuff like that. But I can't tell like which plot is the main plot and which one's the side plot. And neither of them really add much to anything in the episode. Like, the episode itself, it has little to no action, and there's not really anything interesting and keeping me invested in the episode other than a few good jokes here and there. And as well, Morty having a go at his kid and getting really angry is kind of funny.
Nice.
But seeing the world of women, it's just kind of annoying. Like, there are no jokes, there's nothing interesting about them. It's just really annoying, stereotypical women, and I don't know, it just doesn't add anything to the episode. I feel like this episode is like a filler episode. If people are going to watch it, then just tell them not to. Just tell them to skip this episode. Like, there's nothing in it other than in the next episode talking about Gazorpazorp. Another thing that bugs me is the fact that it's a Rick and Summer episode, and it could have been so much better, but I feel like it was done so poorly. Like, yeah, their chemistry is good and it shows how Rick and Summer's relationship is. Like, one of the best moments is when Summer strikes Rick and calls him Dingaling and pretends that he's a slave.
You speak when you're spoken to, Dingaling!
But that's really all there is in the episode. The conflict between Morty and his son, it seems kind of forced and dull, and I feel like Morty was getting more mad than he really should have. I mean, Morty Jr. as well at the end of the episode, he just gets so unenraged so quickly over a song. And, I don't know, it's just, it doesn't feel like anything in this episode is meaningful. I mean, the end of it, of Rick saying that nothing mattered after all and it wasn't worth it, is how I felt after watching this episode. So yeah, at number 11, there is Episode 7, Raising Gazorpazorp.
Fine.
Now, coming in at number 10, we have Episode 3, Anatomy Park. Now, this one again, it does have some funny moments, such as Morty getting to the nipple, and almost all the exchanges inside the park. The premise of the episode is quite cool, but in terms of all the other stories, this is like one of the weakest. I actually had trouble putting this either 10th or 11th, but I just felt this one had a few more funny characters and a bit more story and dynamic to it, whereas the other one didn't really have much. This one as well, it's got some good visuals and ideas of using different viruses in the way that they're used. I think that's pretty clever. And also telling the mascot to stay in the costume was quite funny as well.
Put that back on!
Also, when Ruben coughs and Alexander's thrown out of the body into Rick's face, that's also quite beautiful.
You're not gonna die! What's your name?
My name is...
But I feel like the best part of the episode was the end credit scene, and that's kind of bad to say. I just love the way that Rick throws a tantrum over not getting his own way and not having Pirates of the Pancreas. I think that's a pretty funny bit. But if the end credit scene's the best part of the episode, then it's just not a good episode. I mean, it's a Christmas episode, but it has nothing to do relating to Christmas. And the side story of Jerry's parents, it just seems forced and unnecessary to have, and it just seems like a way to have some conflict with the rest of the family. I mean, me personally, I would have liked it if it was a bit simpler, Christmas related, and maybe something like Jerry burns the ham or forgot a present or something. And I know that's a bit cliche, but it's better than adding the conflict that just seems unnecessary and forced. especially when it feels like it's more added just for a funny aspect. Now, I'm not saying the side plot is necessarily bad, I just would have liked it more as maybe a separate episode if it was needed. I mean, why is Summer even dating Ethan if he's getting annoyed that she doesn't respond and calls her a bitch? Like, what the fuck is that? And Annie not liking Morty and paying him no attention, it seems good, but then just from one smart idea, she's like, oh, okay, I love you. And it just seems a bit stupid to have her change her opinion so quick on something so small. The entire side plot seems forced. Ethan's story about his brother is just right out there for no reason. He built the train system himself and he doesn't know there's an autopilot and doesn't see one after looking, even though he finds it straight away. I mean, the episode doesn't really show much of Rick's genius and also lacks any repercussion at all. I mean, the only thing is that Morty doesn't get a girlfriend and Rick doesn't get his pack, but that's about it. The thing that bugs me the most though is that Jerry is the first one to break the fourth wall, and that really bugs me because Rick is supposed to be the smart one. There's theories out there where Rick knows that he's in a TV show, but yet Jerry is the first person to break the fourth wall in any of the episodes, and I don't know, I feel like that just bugs me a little bit. All in all, this episode could have had much more. The side story could have had Ethan and Summer fighting, but in a different, more intense way, that made Beth and Jerry realise that their marriage is bad, which then makes Summer and Ethan make up, only then for the blood to rain and Beth and Jerry are meant to be. Coming in at number 9, we have episode 11's Rixie Business. Now, this episode, it was one of them episodes, I didn't know where to put it. There's not many good things about the episode, but there's like nothing bad with the episode either. Like, the comedy right away is great, the story's not bad, and as it's the end of the season, it's just a nice way to round it off, and also introduce a few new characters that we'll see later on, whether it be minor characters or major ones. It's not really a bad or good episode. It's just an episode good enough to fit in the middle. I mean, Bird Person and Squanchy are introduced, and they're some of the best side characters, and add the most comedy in the episode. The visuals are beautiful, some of the aliens or creatures in the episode are quite creative. I like the message as well that Morty doesn't like going on adventures, but he genuinely does care and can't do without them.
You're right. I shouldn't even care.
And also I like the fact that Rick sends Morty to get crystals, acting as if they're a way to get him home, but turning out to be drugs, and it just shows Rick's consideration towards other people when he just wants to have fun. Like, he just doesn't care. Also, the message that Rick's in pain and just numbs himself is also great, as we know he's actually broken. His invention of freezing stuff is quite well done as well. I would love something like that, it would be quite useful, but it shows that Rick genuinely does care about his family at the end of the episode. So, at the end, this episode's not a good episode, it's not a bad episode, it's just one of them episodes that happens to be in the season. There's nothing really too much that stands out about it, other than introducing characters. Coming in at number 8, we have episode 1, the pilot episode. Now, this is a great pilot. It's a great introduction to the characters and what to expect, such as Rick and Morty's relationship and also Rick's drinking problem. It introduces everything to expect right away, starting with the bomb and him passing out as it's armed. It shows off cool gadgets, such as the infamous portal gun, also a freeze ray, grappling shoes, which right away are just great. This episode also has some great lines and rants right away from Rick, such as everyone not being able to sleep at night because it makes up half of all time. Stuff like that. It has great humour, such as Mr. Goldenfold shouting about the test, which still makes me laugh nowadays, and the entire classroom scene. It introduces the best character, which is the math teacher. I just absolutely love Mr. Goldenfold, and he is still one of the best characters in any other episode, in my opinion. The scene with Beth and Jerry in the surgery as well, when she gets more infuriated, and the animation gets a bit extravagant, I guess. That's also a good scene. It shows how self-centered Rick can be, even when people are in pain. He just wants stuff for himself. The whole scene in the interdimensional customs is just amazing, and shows just a bit of action that we'll get in the series, and it's just a well done scene. Especially with Morty coughing and then having the phlegm have a life and then dying as well right at the end. I feel like that scene is just a great scene on its own, as it shows everything that can happen in this series. Also, the improv by Rick at the end of the episode is one of the greatest ending monologues ever to an episode. Just him spouting out nonsense while Morty's on the floor paralysed is just incredible. The problems I have with the episode is, obviously, with it being the first episode, the sound quality isn't the best and it has better quality in the other episodes. And also, Summer's just shown as a really stereotypical person in this episode, which they do explain in commentary and stuff, and it's why her character changed in Season 3, but still, it's just really annoying. The adventure itself isn't too great compared to others in the series as well, as they only go for seeds, And again, I get that it's the first episode and it's just an introduction, but I'm just saying that there are much better episodes and adventures in the coming episodes. The Beth and Jerry side plot isn't the worst, but it does go back and forth so much that it just bugs me slightly. Like, it's constantly one and then the other, one and then the other, and I don't know, it's not a bad side plot, but it's just not great. Also, a few things that kind of bug me, which I guess are like continuity things, I'm not sure. It's when Rick leaves Morty to go get the broken leg serum, and he says he stayed in that place for a long time, but his gun ran out of charge. But then later on the series, we learn that time passes equally in all dimensions, so he couldn't have stayed for ages, he could have only stayed for them few seconds, unless he used time travel. I don't know, I feel like that's just a bit of continuity. And then as well, the alien bugs have an interdimensional portal device, but then later in the series, they need Rick for one. And I don't know, I feel like just the continuity is a bit off, but still, it's a great episode. Coming in at number 7 is episode 5, Meeseeks and Destroy.
I'm Mr. Meeseeks! Look at me!
And I know I'm going to get a load of flack for this one, because I know this is a fan favourite, but hear me out, okay? So the visuals in the beginning, they're amazing, the Skyrim-like village is beautiful, and I like that it also relates to Jack and the Beanstalk, I love that. And also, this is the start of Morty being in charge of every 10th adventure, which is a really cool concept. Characters, and both stories are interesting in their own right. The comedy's great, such as Principal Vagina talking to the Meeseeks and then him just disappearing, and also Beth almost kissing one of the Meeseeks with him being oblivious and then just disappearing. The Rick and Morty adventure adapting Jack and the Beanstalk into its own version just makes it so much funnier, and it just shows what this show will do. Like, you can't expect it to be the stereotypical, oh, Jack and the Beanstalk, they get a golden goose. No, instead, they kill a giant and nearly get arrested for it. Also, the joke that Rick makes about dropping the soap and then, it's one of the funniest jokes in the series in my opinion. And, I don't know, it just seems so random and so out there, and it was beautiful. This episode brings the dynamic as well of Rick and Morty to the highest point we've seen, as it shows Rick genuinely caring for Morty, as he sees that he's in distress and then helps with the adventure and just wants him to be happy. And even when they leave, he pops back in to kill King Jellybean. And it just shows how awesome Rick's character is, and that he's not just a one-dimensional character, he does have some care in him, but he just hides it away. The action as well between the Meeseeks and also Morty versus King Jellybean is just incredible. The action is beautiful, it's bloody, and it's just funny all out. The only thing that bugs me is that I'd like to see the starting story as its own story. One thing that really infuriates me with this episode is that Jerry is just one of the most annoying Jerrys in any of the season, and it's just so infuriating the entire episode. Like, I get, yeah, he wants to do well and stuff, but he's asked for help and then he's just not taking it, and it just really infuriates me. Every part with Jerry in this episode just bugs me, and I hate how Jerry is in this episode. And also, Jerry taking the strokes off right at the end, it just happens so quickly, even though he was so bad before. Like, he couldn't hit the ball before, and then all of a sudden, when Beth kisses him and says she loves him, he just, all of a sudden, bam, he knows what he's doing, and he does it perfectly. Like, I get the adrenaline and stuff, but nah. One, hitting the tomato would break it, and two, it just doesn't show anything right. I don't know, he just should not get it that quickly, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, episode 5, Meeseeks and Destroy, comes in at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is another one that I know people will disagree with, but it's episode 8's Ricksty Minutes. Now, this episode is just brilliant. It's improvised, so it makes it much better, as it means anything can happen, and it does, which makes for some of the best comedy moments, and also some of the best visual moments. The fact that it just has a random segment thrown into the TV, but it still keeps you interested, is amazing, and that's probably why it's better than most of the other episodes. I mean, like, every single one of the TV shows that they bring in is just amazing and quotable, and it's just, you always remember it, and I think that's amazing. This is one of the episodes as well where Rick and Morty have good chemistry, and it's over TV, it's beautiful, and it's an episode that doesn't involve Rick with conflict, and instead more focuses on the side plot and just making the viewer have fun. It doesn't just go with the cliche of get the characters into a predicament and then they resolve it or something like that. Instead, it's just a random episode which is still amazing. It has so much stuff about it. It's got action in some of the improv TV shows. It's got a good story to it. And it's just an all-round great episode. Also, Morty showing Summer that the answer isn't to run and then showing that he's not her real brother is amazing. Ties into the whole, oh well, this can happen, that can happen. Also, look, I'm dead. It makes some good chemistry between the two, like Morty and Summer, and it shows how far he'll actually go to make sure that she's happy. There's the great gadgets, so you can see the alternate realities, which would be nice to have in real life, but obviously that's never going to happen. One question I have is, would it be able to see a reality of themselves looking into their own eyes, and then seeing themselves looking into their own eyes, which creates a parallel? I mean, this alone makes me want to see all the TV shows and more. Like, all the TV shows, including the Two Brothers movie, could just be its own spin-off, and people would definitely watch it, because in just a few minutes, it's incredible, full of action, and it's just something everyone would want to see. Also, the conflict between Beth, Jerry and Summer doesn't seem forced, and seems like a real reason for conflict. I mean, like Summer says, when she's there, life's more predictable. But then again, it makes you think, like, there's infinite realities. So that means, yeah, in some realities it's going to be boring, but in other realities it's going to be fine because there's so many realities. Maybe when Summer's born, they become millionaires or something like that. Most of the characters are memorable as well, even if they're only on screen for a little bit of time, such as Auntie Marge Johnson or Real Fake Dolls Guy, and they are some of the best characters that are just randomly thrown in. I also like how some of the shows react to Rick and Morty talking, such as the Real Fake Dolls. He doesn't talk until Rick and Morty have finished their sentence, which I think is quite cool with breaking the fourth wall as well. At the end of the episode as well, where Morty's gone and he's talking to Summer, and then Jerry says that he thinks the TV show's cool, and Rick says, I don't give a hell what you think about Jerry. That's just beautiful. I know he doesn't say hell, but, you know, censorship on YouTube. The only things I've got problem with is the Summer throwing a tantrum because a few realities are amazing, and there's an infinite number of realities, but I've already said about that. Like, there could be a reality where she's being born and there's a great life because there's multiple opportunities, you know? Also, it kind of bugs me that at the end, in the reality that Beth and Jerry are in, they're sad all of a sudden, and then next thing you know, Jerry's going to Beth's and they're happy. Like, it just seems like a crappy cop-out and a way to resolve their marriage problems in the real world, and I feel like it's kind of dull and they could have done it a bit better. But other than that, there's nothing really wrong with the episode, and that's why it's coming in at number 6. Coming in at number 5 is episode 9's Something Ricked This Way Comes. Now, this episode, when I first thought about it before watching the series again, I was going to put this very low down. But after watching it all over again, I thought, you know what, it's actually a really good episode. Now, the whole beginning scene of this with Rick just making a robot just to pass him the butter, and then Morty seeing his dad in the game, knowing that he's working with his dad instead of Rick, is just a great first gag to go with. Like, it just shows how smart Rick is that he's created something just for butter, and how stupid Jerry is, the fact that he's just on a game where you press a red balloon. The whole story of having Rick against the devil is great, and it's just so memorable in general. Like, if you were to ask people about characters in Season 1 that they remember, I'm pretty sure the devil would be up there. And the thing is, it doesn't just go with the stereotypical, oh, the devil's got all these powers, he's amazing. It gets creative with what the devil's given away, such as potions that made Goldenfold attractive but unable to have sex. There's so many great moments, and their encounter with each other is just beautiful, as it shows that Rick is even worse than the devil, which is kind of a cool metaphor for Rick's character. It also gives Summer another person to look up to other than Rick, which he says he doesn't care about, but we all know deep down he does. I also love how it shows Rick gets bored as soon as he's won, and so he just burns the building down even with people still inside, because it just shows how easy something can be for him and how easily he gets bored once he's done his job. And mostly, he just does stuff just to prove a point, to say that he can do it. The chemistry that Summer and the devil have is kind of nice to see as well, and then when he betrays it, the ending with Rick and Summer bulking up just to take him out is amazing, as it shows them working together just to mess him up.
Stupid mother! How do you like that? How do you like that?
Also, the actual concept of Pluto being not a planet anymore is really well done, and it had a good reason to it. Like, I like how they didn't just say, oh yeah, they didn't realise it's not a planet. Instead it was sucking up plutonium, and that made the world shrink and shrink and shrink, which is kind of a great way to have Pluto not be a planet anymore. I also like how at the end of the show, it shows how lonely Rick actually is, to the point that he even wants to find Jerry, and then even asks a robot if he's free to hang out, as it just gives us more of a reason to feel bad for his character, as we can see that he's genuinely sad. And then when Morty actually returns, you can see genuine happiness on his face to see Morty, but he has to keep his persona and hides it away, and it shows that Rick does have a passionate side, but he just hides it because emotions are what get you killed. It also has great comedy too. It has comedy that just ends perfectly, like the Devil and Rick laughing at each other, and Rick saying, The only thing is, I wish we could have seen more of the Devil's artifacts, as I would love to see how creative the team could have gotten. And I would also kind of want to see the Devil come back in a future episode, as a bigger part and a bigger villain for Rick, as I feel their hatred was great and would make for another cool episode if it was done right. Also, the whole Morty and Jerry storyline, it just kind of bugs me again, because it shows Jerry just being a total arsehole because of his ego. Like, I get that that's his character and everything, and I'm okay with it, but when he's just being an arsehole for the sake of being an arsehole, it just really annoys me. And the entire time, I just felt really bad for Morty, and I just wanted Jerry to shut up. Like, I know that Jerry takes it too far sometimes for the sake of things, but when he takes it too far just for the sake of being correct, it really bugs me how he's portrayed. Coming in at number 4, we have episode 2's Lawnmower Dog. Now, this episode originally was going to be in my top 3, but after rewatching the series, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to put this at 4, so it's kind of like a top 3 honourable mention. This introduces one of my favourite gadgets that Rick has made, as it makes the dog smarter, and it's so well done. I also always love a good movie parody, and this one parodies the movie so well that you can't not love it. Like, just the fact that they created Freddy Krueger as Scary Terry, and then even acknowledge it, it's just beautiful fourth wall breaking. It also has a story featuring my favourite side character, Mr. Goldenfold, who is amazing in the episode as it shows him being a total badass, even if it is just a dream sequence. Also, the side plot with the dog is amazing. Other than the fact they use the dog as a slave at the start, it gets so much better as the episode progresses. The comedy isn't really great, as it focuses more on the story aspect in this one than the humour, but that doesn't take away from how amazing the episode actually is. It also has references to Gravity Falls too, which is just also great. The sex dream is super weird, but it's perfect for Mr. Goldenfall's character, and the fact that Rick gets in on the sex dream so easily is just beautiful, and I just love that he embraced it right away, as it's great for knowing what his character would be. The visuals throughout it all are just beautiful, especially in the dream with Scary Terry. Even the rain and just everything in this episode, everything in this entire episode is interesting and keeps you hooked with how visually beautiful it is and the story itself. It's really well thought through as well with how to incept and stuff and making it so time goes a little bit slower, and then adding that into the end scene is just beautiful. Having them become friends as well with Scary Terry is beautiful and is just done so well, but I'm just sad that we haven't seen him since, as he would have been a great character to have maybe in future episodes. Like, maybe Rick could invent something to bring him into the real world, and then have another episode with him there. Kinda like with Freddy vs. Jason, stuff like that. Jerry peeing on the guns and having his face dipped in the pee was probably the only part in the episode that I truly found funny, but that doesn't take away from how great the episode is. I mean, yeah, the comedy isn't too great, but there's still some moments in it which are like, okay, this is quite funny. The way the episode wraps up as well, with Rick using the Inceptors to make time go by 6 hours, is just beautifully done, as it incorporates the pieces from the main plot, and also makes everything that dogs do in a way that seems realistic and not forced. Like, Rick pretending to be a dog is just glorious, and having him incept the dog's dream, and then having it so time goes a bit slower, because dogs are 7 years and stuff like that for 1 year, it's just beautiful, and it's just so well done. Also, the very end credit scene with having Rick and Scary Terry get high together is just something that I didn't know I needed, but I'm so glad I had it. The only problems I have with this episode is, again, Jerry is portrayed in such a huge douchey way that he needs to just chill out. Like, I get that he's like it in all the other episodes and stuff like that, but he seems to have really pushed it in this episode. And then the fact that at the end of it, even though he's been a douche the entire time and doesn't like the dog or whatever, him crying at the end just seems a bit unnecessary, and I don't know, it just seems like it was forced. I'd also love to see the dogs in another episode to see what's happened with them. Like, maybe in an episode he uses his portal gun and ends up going to the universe where the dogs are or something, just to see like how they're getting along. I feel like that'd be a pretty good homage to episode 2. But yeah, coming in at number 4 is episode 2, Lawnmower Dog. These next 3 episodes, I did have trouble putting them from worst to best, but I believe after rewatching them and just seeing all the notes I've got on it and stuff like that, I feel like the way that I've put them now is probably the best I'm going to get. So coming in at number 3 is episode 6, Rick Potion 9. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this episode and the next 2 after it, but I feel like this episode is probably the worst of the 3. But let's get on to the pros. So it's got good comedy throughout. Rick's rant about love and marriage is so fluid and just beautiful. And any time that Rick has a rant or a monologue or something like that, it's always beautiful, and there's no exception with this one. It's just amazing. Jerry and Beth's side story is also very well done, and has a great beginning monologue between Beth and Jerry where he asks if she still loves him, and her saying no. Stuff like that, it shows that their marriage doesn't work, but she does it just because she kind of loves him. I feel like that's a good way of saying how their marriage actually is. The thing is, there's a great load of crazy in both stories, whether it be the side plot or the main plot. Each one has just enough crazy to be amazing but not overwhelm you. I mean, Jessica being extremely horny on the dance floor is just hilarious and shows what animals are like and why it doesn't work. It also has beautiful visuals throughout the entire episode, especially the transition from humans to mantises, and by beautiful, I mean terrifying, but still, it's just so cool to see. Jerry being jealous makes him one of the best Jerrys in the entire series, as he goes full on badass mode and is just written so awesomely. Like, he finally gets some development that makes him a bit more likeable. Like, in all the other episodes, he's either seen as like a wimp or a douche or something like that, but in this episode, it just shows him being a total badass and shows just how far he'll go when he wants something done. But this one isn't done in a douchey way. This one is just done so well that it makes Jerry the Jerry's Jerry, according to some theories. Also, I love that Rick acts like he knows exactly what he's doing, just to keep his persona and to make him seem like he's better than everyone, but keeps messing up, and it's just great, as it shows how full of himself he actually is. And also, Rick being interested in his failure and acting as if it's cool, it shows off his character perfectly. Also, when Jerry and Beth are together, and then Summer comes along, Beth finally says that Rick is selfish and basically says she doesn't care about him, which is great as it gives more development towards her character. The thing about this episode as well is it shows the perfect repercussions that can happen to a world in one of their adventures. Like, them all turned into Cronenbergs shows just how much fun the creators have, and it just shows that they can make anything great. It makes you think as well that the world is fine and that he's saved the world, stuff like that, but you don't get to see like how he did it, only to then kill them both off and have the other Rick and Morty appear to take their place. I mean, that is just one of the best twist endings in any TV show, and it's also the first story to show that other realities can be implemented into the main story. And so we see that not every story technically has a good ending to it, and that the series rarely can go any way that the writers want, and makes us notice that even when we think that they're okay in some situations, it can turn out to be completely false. Like, nothing you think about the series matters, because the writers can just do anything they want and it'll shock you anyway. This episode has such a huge impact on the series as a whole, and it shows the perfect way that the show is, as it shows Rick's lack of care, and it makes him seem like even though he did wrong, it was a good thing. Also, the end scene with Beth, Jerry and Summer is also great, as it shows that they'll still carry on in their world that Rick and Morty messed up, but are more happy because they no longer have Rick and Morty, which just gives them a bit more character. So yeah, coming in at number 3 is episode 6, Rick Potion 9. Coming in at number 2 is episode 10, Close Encounters of the Rick Kind. Now, I know straight away that most people will probably put this at number 1. And not gonna lie, I almost put this at number 1, but I feel like the number 1 spot just belongs to the other one, which we'll be getting into in a second. So this episode straight away just hits you with the death of Rick, which is just mental. I mean, it could be our Rick, it couldn't be. We just see it and we're like, oh crap, okay, a Rick's just died. But then we find out that all that relates further into the episode. This is the first time where we get to see all the Ricks together, and shows that not all Ricks are equal, and some just work for the man. So some of them, yeah, they go to the garage and stuff like that and they make inventions, but it also shows that even in this world, there's a government of Ricks that are controlled by the higher-ups. And having it so evil Rick is framing our Rick is just great on its own, but when you get to the end of the episode and then find out that he's actually being controlled, it just adds a whole new level of story and mystery into the entire series, as it's showing that not everything's as it seems. And it also introduces us to the best villain in the entire show, Evil Morty. I mean, when I first watched this episode, it just came out of nowhere, and I'm pretty sure everyone, including myself, loves the show so much because of this one scene. I mean, we've been learning that Mortys are all weak and the nerdy stuff like that, and they can't defend themselves, but then at the end of the episode having it so that the entire evil Rick, so the most evil Rick, is actually controlled by a Morty, it just shows the entire possibility. It opens up a whole new world of possibilities that this episode can go with. I mean, don't get me wrong, the show is incredible anyway, but the way they wrote this episode in just a way that it paved a whole new way of thinking, and you don't know what it is. And with the later seasons also having Evil Morty, it just makes seeing this character now so much better. I also somewhat enjoyed the side plot of this episode as well, as it has Jerry and Doofus Rick bonding. And yeah, I get that Doofus Rick is the worst Rick, but it's kind of nice to see Jerry actually having a friend and being happy for once. Like, I know in some episodes he's annoying, and he needs to chill out, but in this episode he finally gets a break and finally has a friend in Doofus Rick, which I think is quite sweet. Up until the point that he says they should kill their own Rick and him stay. The episode has tons of great jokes, such as the portal gun history, when he says run Morty and then another Morty starts running. It's just incredible. Having them chased through different timelines as well was kind of cool, and the whole takeaway with the chairs and phones is kind of cool, as they put a load of detail into the entire universe and into the background of this, such as the bus being a bottle, which just shows how detailed these episodes can be. As well, this episode gives Rick a genuine moment of heart towards Morty, when he cries about seeing him as a baby. I mean, yeah, there are theories about him seeing Morty as a baby and stuff like that, but I'm not going to get into that now. The one true Morty and him giving his speech finally gives Morty a bit more character than being a nerdy wimp who just listens to Rick and stuff like that. Like, it finally gives him more character. The end credit scene with Jerry and Doofus Rick is also great, as you feel kind of sad for them, and then our Rick comes along and just craps all over them. There's great timing with the comedy, and it's just an incredible end scene. So yeah, number 2 is episode 10, Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind. Okay, so finally, coming in at number 1 is episode 4's M. Night Shyamalians. Now, I know this is probably going to be the most controversial one, because some people probably don't agree at this being number 1, but I think, personally, this is the best episode in Season 1 of Rick and Morty. I mean, the story itself is just incredible, and is extremely well thought through. The comedy is great, and comes mainly from Jerry's side of the story, and even though it's a simulation, the relationship between Rick and Morty goes even further for us, and it's just amazing. Like, them showering together, or them goofing about with the processors. Like, yeah, I get it's a simulation, and I get that Rick knows it's a simulation at the end of the episode, but just seeing them have that kind of bond, especially in the 4th episode, it gives us some hope for their characters. The ending of the episode as well is what makes the episode the best of the season, as it shows just how smart Rick and the writers of the show are. As Rick knew from the beginning that he was in a simulation, like, he was always steps ahead of the people, and the fact that they made us think different and that the aliens got away with it, it's just so well done, and that's why it's a favourite of the season. The side plot as well is just as good as the episode itself, as it finally shows Jerry and his life, and how simple his life is, by the fact that his best day ever is on the lowest power of a computer. And the fact that he's completely oblivious to the whole thing makes the episode so much more entertaining, and just gives Jerry that kind of lovability about him. I think that as well, Jerry acting nervous and backtracking, and just everything with Jerry in this episode is incredible. Like, yeah, Jerry being a badass in the Rick Potion episode is good, but in this one, he's just so lovable, and you feel so bad for him knowing that he's having the time of his life in a simulation. The visualization is also beautiful at the beginning, as it shows the simulation aspects. There's great villains, and for the first time, I truly did feel sorry for Jerry. We get to see future characters as well, such as Plutonians, and it just shows just how badass Rick is. The end credit scene's also really cool, as it shows Jerry being told that his campaign is bad and he's being fired. And also, with Rick going crazy on Morty about being in a simulation, it just shows that even when we think it's over, it might not be. And that's where we got a lot of theories from, because even Rick might think that it's a simulation. Overall, I just think that this is the best episode in the season. It's just got so much about it. It makes you think, and it's once you rewatch it, knowing that Rick knew he was in a simulation, it just gives you so much more about his character and about the series itself. So yeah guys, that's it. That's my worst to best of Rick and Morty Season 1. So Season 4 will be coming out pretty shortly, and hopefully I'm going to get that out before it starts. I'm also going to do I'm going to do worst to best of Rick and Morty Season 2 and Season 3, and then also Season 4 when it comes out. If you want me to do any more worst to best of any other series, then just let me know, and I'll try to do it. But yeah guys, if you agreed with me, then make sure to leave a comment. If you didn't, let me know your list and what you think, and also why, because I'd love to see like why you say an episode's better than another one. But yeah guys, thank you for watching, I hope to see you soon, and I'll speak to you later.